So what are we likely to see in the next 20 years, 30 years in terms of climate and the impact on us as individuals? What do you think is going to be the most obvious things that we'll be looking at?
The increase in days over 35 degrees and that heat stress element, that seems to be, that's coming up everywhere. There are parts of Australia though, and arguably where we are now in Bathurst is one of those, that actually, they're probably not faring too badly out of the changing climate. We're projected to have roughly the same rainfall, although problematically it now comes in big dumps at different times of year instead of being distributed evenly across the year, which is a problem for farming. If you're in some other areas of Australia, like parts of Victoria, you're looking at major drying trends there. And lots more days over 35 degrees. And there's this really interesting thing that happens with the Australian bush. Once you get hot, the oils are exponentially volatile. And so our forests are much more prone to fire. So, they're some of the natural disasters. The other thing, Janine, when you've got more energy in the system, you can imagine if you've got, let's talk about making poached eggs. So when you poach eggs, you've got to have your pot on the stove and you have a really gentle boil, and you have to get it just right. You go to the cafes and they have a little bit of gas, they get it just right, because you don't want volatility in that water. You don't want rolling, boiling water. If you turn that up too high, the water starts to be turbulent and chaotic. And that's what's happening in our climate system. So it's much harder to predict now what the weather will be like at any point in time. And you're getting volatility which throws ice way down into North America where it wouldn't normally come, and throws heat waves up into areas where it's normally cold. So fundamentally, I think that's what you're looking at is a more chaotic overall warming, and certainly in many agricultural places, drying climate.
I think it's fair to say that you've got a lot more knowledge than the average person. What are you doing within the Bland household to combat climate change, or what do you do that's different? What level of awareness do you have in your day-to-day, going about your day-to-day that's different?
Yeah, good question. It's in 100 little choices. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I live off grid, so I've got a solar system and a battery, and we have no connection to the network, so that's good. That was an obvious choice because it was going to be much more expensive to connect. But that's kind of a unique thing to my circumstance. There's a lot of little things. I really don't eat a lot of meat. I love going to my butcher. Number one, I go to the local butcher, not the large stores, and going in and saying, just give me the nicest meat you have, mate. And I do that once or twice a month, and that's enough, because I think that's good for your health, but also good for the planet in this sort of region. We really try and avoid packaged materials and processed foods. Every time processed food exists, then it's had factories and farms, it's an enormous amount of energy's gone into making that. It's actually back to the future. It's sort of being more like the way my grandparents lived. Now, that's not to say I don't have a Yui boom and rock around the kitchen to the kids, on Spotify, and, you still got to live and you've got to be part of society, but just backing off a bit, it's not hard.